Hi, I'm Brandy Howes, and this is my prompt 2. Article reflection. Reflection is essential for teachers because it helps them grow professionally, improve instruction, and better support their students. Reflection on teaching practice has been recognized to improve teaching skills. There are many ways that reflection can benefit teachers. Reflection builds confidence and purpose. It helps teachers recognize their growth, celebrate successes, and stay connected to their why. It also strengthens students' learning. Teachers can identify learning gaps, misconceptions, and strengths, then adjust their instruction accordingly. The role reflection plays in my own instructional practice. Reflection plays a vital role in my classroom. As a second-year teacher, reflection plays a vital role in my professional growth and daily practice. It allows me to look back on my classroom management, lessons, and student interactions to see what is working and what needs improvement. As a first-year teacher, most of my focus was on survival, learning routines, managing behaviors, and understanding curriculum expectations. Now, reflection helps me move beyond just managing my classroom to truly improving student learning. How I utilize peer experts in becoming a better teacher. At my school, we are required to have weekly PLs, which are professional learning communities and grade level meetings. This allows me to work with my colleagues to become a better teacher by providing continuous support, new strategies, and time to reflect on my teaching. These collaborations allow me to stay up to date with effective instructional methods, engagement strategies, and differentiation opportunities. It also gives us the opportunity to look at student data to see what students are mastering and where students need additional support. Using student data ensures that instruction is intentional, equitable, and focused on helping every student succeed. The capacity that prior knowledge and student experience influence my own growth as a teacher. My prior knowledge and student experiences influences my growth as a teacher because it shapes how I approach instruction, problem solving, and the relationships in my classroom. The lessons I've learned from past experiences, both as a teacher and a student, help me understand how students think, what motivates them, and what kinds of support they need to be successful. Each group of new students teaches me something different about learning styles, communication, and my classroom dynamics. Lessons I've developed as an undergraduate. The lessons that I've developed as an undergraduate student focused on story elements. The standard focused on identifying characters, setting, and major events in a story. Overall, the lesson went well. The lesson provided a clear understanding for what I wanted students to learn and how I would assess their comprehension related to the read aloud. Success of addressing all learners in classroom. As I look back at the lesson, I felt like I addressed the needs of all learners in the classroom. For example, for my English language learners, I allowed extra time, repeated instructions, and provided a vocabulary word wall for students to reference. For my above grade level students, I extended student thinking by asking more challenging questions to help enrich their learning. And for my below level learners, I provided extra support and guidance as needed. Strategies that worked and did not work. Some students showed signs of confusion when differentiating between problem and solution. To help with this, one strategy that I used was visuals, such as my read aloud and picture cards. This allowed the students to notice the characters' facial expressions when there was a problem versus their expressions when there was a solution. We referred back to the mentor text several times, and students seemed to grasp the concept of story elements. Another strategy that was successful was allowing students to collaborate with their peers. They discussed which character was their favorite from the story. One area that I can improve in would be time management. Sometimes students get overly excited when talking about a story they can relate to, and this causes them to stray away from the given topic. How did your strategies for integration work within the lesson? What changes would you make to ensure multiple content areas were covered more successfully? In my original lesson, I integrated math and referred back to the mentor text. The students had to count or tally every time that Mean Jean did something mean to her friends. To ensure multiple content areas were covered, I could have integrated social studies and writing. To focus on the civics and community standards, we could have talked about the importance of getting along with others on the playground. It is important for students to understand that getting along with others is a lifelong skill. To integrate writing, students could have written about the story elements found in the text. This is my video of the recreated lesson. Journal from Reteach. I chose to integrate writing into my reading lesson. Integrating writing into the reading instruction is important because it helps students develop deeper comprehension and communication skills. I've noticed that my students are lacking both of those skills, and for that reason, I thought it would be beneficial to focus on it. It allowed the students to engage with the text more meaningfully. As I focused on writing, I noticed that it had a positive effect in all subject areas. The students had to identify by writing the character, setting, and problem and solution from the story. I felt like the lesson went really well once I was able to incorporate writing, as it allowed me to gauge students' comprehension. Reflection. What was successful? How did it vary from previous lessons? The lesson was successful because students were able to comprehend the text by identifying through writing the character, setting, problem, and solution. This lesson differed from the previous lesson because I asked questions orally and I didn't give students the opportunity to show their understanding by writing. Whenever students write, they deepen their understanding. How prevalent was cultural diversity and community engagement within your planning and presentation? Were you successful? And explain how you determined that success. To ensure that my lesson was inclusive, I chose a read aloud that represented all the students in my class. There was cultural diversity displayed throughout the illustrations of the book. The text showed students from different cultural backgrounds playing with one another. This was meaningful because it showed students interacting with each other just like we do at recess every day. This allowed the students to relate to the text to their daily interactions on the playground. After my lesson ended, I invited former students of mine to visit our classroom and explain the importance of getting along with each other and to include everyone. This promoted community engagement into my classroom. My younger students viewed my former students as role models. What level of student engagement existed in both iterations, and how might you continue to alter this for future classes? Students were engaged in both lessons. The first lesson, they were engaged by answering open-ended questions. In the retaught lesson, students were engaged whole group on the rug by first talking about story elements and helping to create the anchor chart to guide their understanding. After the lesson was recorded, students then went to their seats and wrote about their learning. They identified story elements by writing on a graphic organizer. In future lessons, I would have students write in their journals about their favorite characters. They could also draw and label as well. Were there changes in student engagement? Did students' learning change as a result of the revised lesson? There were changes in student engagement because the first lesson didn't have hands-on learning. The first lesson consisted of students sitting on a rug, answering questions. During this time, students were interrupting one another. This caused a lot of disruptions and resulted in students getting off task. In the revised lesson, students had to display their comprehension by writing independently. Students were more on task and were able to deepen their understanding of the story elements. Summary of the entire class learning experience. Overall, the students seemed to comprehend the lesson on story elements. As I reflected, I noticed that incorporating the writing was instrumental in student comprehension. As I looked over student work, I noticed that the students were able to identify the characters, setting, and major events of a story. They were able to talk about the story elements and write about them. This is my student work samples, student number 1 and student number 2. This student was able to write. This student was able to draw pictures. Student 1 was able to successfully identify by writing the character, setting, and major events in the story. She was able to sound out the words that she wrote. Next time, I could provide an anchor chart that had the characters' names listed so she could refer to the chart as needed. Student 2 was a below-level learner that is unable to write sentences, so he draws pictures to show his learning. This is how I differentiate instruction for him. I know he understood the story elements because he accurately drew the pictures that represented them. Whenever he drew the characters for the problem and solution, he used the correct facial expressions. Analyze student work samples and determine ways you could have made student learning more integrated and inclusive for diverse learners. To make learning more integrated, I could have incorporated technology. I could have used an interactive whiteboard activity that allowed students to display pictures under the correct story element category. To be more inclusive for diverse learners, I could have had students participate in a turn and talk activity. This would allow students to learn from other perspectives and strengths. Graduate experience reflection. The courses I took at University of West Georgia allowed me to become a lifelong learner. During my ECSE 7500 course, I learned the importance of diversity in the classroom. The course taught me how to ensure all students feel represented and valued in the classroom. I bought culturally diverse books to put in my classroom library and started celebrating other cultures' holidays. During my ECED 7259 course, I learned several different math strategies and techniques. Whenever I went through school, math was taught a different way. This course helped me to learn the new way that math is taught, which has helped me to teach my students. The skill that I feel I missed was writing. Writing can be difficult to teach to young learners. I feel like a course that focused on writing would have been beneficial to me. I'm thankful for the valuable information that I've learned at University of West Georgia, and it has made me the teacher that I am today. And here are my references. Thank you.